Hello, so it is 2 years since I last made a video on the fairy type and some problems with it. An unscripted ramble about a Pokemon type, which was the second video I ever made was on rock and ground type, unscripted rambling, and I did fairy, and I didn't do dark, but if I would, then I would have just said the things I said in the physical special split video. So I put every type except those 4 onto a wheel and just like spun it to see if there's, to get another type to talk about, to, just doing that. Okay, cat. I have a cat here as well today. I just thought it'd be fun to do a video with them again. They're not saying anything right now, but they're here. Listen. He's kind of happy about being held like this, I think. Okay, so the first thing that's weird about Poison type. Why is it weak to ground and psychic? And the resistances are slightly odd too. I mean, you're obviously, resist poison. Bug, I don't know. Like grass, okay. It doesn't like things that are like pollution, okay. Fighting, it would be kind of hard to punch pollution or like a snake, so okay. But weak to ground and psychic. Why would it be weak to ground and psychic? And I did a bit of checking, before I made this to see if anybody had any explanations, and there are explanations out there, but there's no consistency. Right, it's really difficult to find the same explanation said multiple times by different people. Most people that have an explanation came up with it themselves, and not many other people came up with that idea. The only one I heard that was convincing was that supposedly in Japan, like the earth, like, I don't know, like laying on the ground or whatever, is associated with like purifying poisons or something. I don't know the details, or if it's true. But if it is, then okay, that would make sense, and that would explain why it's weak to it and why it resists it. Psychic, the only idea I've come up with is like, in Generation 1, it's kind of like, you could see poison kind of being like the sneaky snake type, because there wasn't a dark type yet, so like, that later became dark type, but like if a snake is gonna spring out and bite you, then being psychic, you'd know that it was gonna happen. But then they made dark immune to psychic, so that's kind of weird. And I don't know, it's not a very good explanation. I haven't heard any good explanations really that were able to convince me, but you might have one, but I don't think there is a good widely convincing explanation for it. And so the second weird thing is this section, the things it's good against, which is to say the thing that's not good against, which is everything except grass. It is one of only 2 types to only be super effective against 1 type. Okay, why do you want to leave? You just got here. Come on. Okay, I'm gonna keep sitting for a bit. The only other type that's only good against 1 type is Dragon, which is, I mean, it's only good against itself too, but it's only resisted by 1 type until Fairy was added. And so Dragon can actually be quite good offensively, because you just have an absurdly powerful Dragon type and like boost up its attack or something, and then just hit everything with a dragon type attack, and it doesn't matter if it's not super effective, if it's just enough to damage in 1 hit, and what matters is that it's not resisted. Poison definitely can't do that. It's got a lot of things that resist it, actually. Maybe it's more comparable to like normal type, which, isn't very good offensively. It's only really good if you want, like, for being, like, widely available neutral coverage against types that aren't these. Because, like, you know, until for a long time you could have return on it, like any Pokemon, and that would just be a 100 base power move that would be neutral a lot of the time, and that's kind of good. But Poison is not neutral a lot of the time. Normal has 2 resistances and an immunity, but Poison has 4 resistances and an immunity. In exchange, they could be good against Grass. That's only one type. And early on, a lot of the Grass types were also Poison types. Miss, why are you trying? What are you fighting over? I'm just holding you. I think since I recorded the last video, I've let him in my room not held by me a lot more. I've let him... He's restricted on being in my room, but I let him sit at the window. And so that's probably what he wants. He was purring earlier. He probably didn't pick up on the microphone. And so, anyway, what I was saying is, of course, before Fairy type was added. Fairy type was added and only has 2 weaknesses. Neither of them were very good offensive types, so suddenly, like, oh, Poison and Steel actually, you have kind of a reason to use attacks of those types, because it's the only way to hit Fairy. But I'm going to be mostly focusing on before the introduction of Fairy, because there's something... There's a few interesting things about it. So, you sure? Here, I'm gonna hold you like this again. We'll try that. We'll try this again. You're pretty happy about that. Okay, no, he doesn't want to be here. Okay, I have a replacement cat, though. Alright, I got the secondary cat. Hey, Callie, do you want to say hi? Close enough to say hi. So, it's really bad offensively. Right? But if you look at it defensively, it's kind of good, actually. It only has 2 weaknesses, which is pretty good. The only better you could be is Electric or Normal, which only have 1 weakness. But they don't have many resistances, and Poison has 4, which is more than Water, which is 2 weaknesses, but only 3 resistances. So it's actually kind of good. Excluding Generation 1, when it was weak to Bug, which is kind of the weirdest type change in the series. The majority of type changes are relating to the addition of a new type. Can you still hear Callie? So yeah, most type changes relate to the addition of a new type, like when Fairy was added or when Steel and Dark were added. And I suppose Poison and Bug were affected by Steel, so maybe it relates. Mostly, it just kind of seems unrelated, and like maybe it was a bug fix. Like, Psychic was immune to Ghost in Generation 1, but then it was made weak to it, and we're pretty sure that was a bug fix, because there's like at least that episode of the anime where, like, oh, Ash is like, oh, we have to catch a Ghost type to be good against Psychic types, and he catches Haunter, which was actually, at the time, one of the worst Pokemon you could use to fight Psychic types. Because it's, by being Poison type, it's weak to them, and it's Ghost type. I mean, it could use Lick, but it wouldn't be good. But they would be immune to it. There was only 1 damaging Ghost type move, so the immunity was also something you could barely even notice. And so maybe the Bug and Poison thing. Bug was weak to Poison and super effective against it, and those were both removed. And instead, Poison resists Bug. Bug doesn't resist or have a weakness to Poison. So I don't know, it's pretty weird, and I'm not sure what the relation would have been beforehand. I've heard, like, I don't know, bugs are bad at handling pollution, I think, so it would make sense for them to be weak to Poison, but why is Poison weak to Bug? I don't know. And so the difference isn't that big of a deal, because being weak to Bug is the second least relevant type to be weak to in the first generation. The first is Ghost, like I mentioned, it only had 1 attacking type. one attacking move. But Bug, okay, several of these have been buffed since they were here, but the only, like, the best Bug type move I think was Twin Needle, which only Beedrill could use, or Pin Missile, which was a base power of 14 and accuracy of 85. But it was the only move you could use to be super effective against psychic types and have any kind of relevancy. And even if, you know, you were using those moves, the only Bug types that didn't suck were effectively just weird normal types. Yeah, Scyther, basically just a weird normal type. It only learns normal type moves. And Wing Attack in Pokemon Yellow. Your 35 base power Wing Attack. Congratulations, Scyther. And Toxic and Rest. And, you know, Pinsir also. I could learn Submission. Okay, congratulations, Pinsir. You graduate to normal type that learns one fighting move. And then, like, oh, being super effective against Bug, okay, but half the Bug types are poison type. Like, almost half. Oh, and being super effective against Grass, oh, more than half of the Grass types are poison type too. Like, there's just so many weird things going on, especially in the first generation. But anyway, later on, horrible offensively. Like, I think that's arguably the worst one. If I were to choose the worst one, I'd say it's this. But I guess, I guess like Bug and Grass nowadays have 7 things that resist them total, but no immunity, and they actually are super effective in several things. So like, there's a use. Unlike this, which has no real use except Fairy. But Beam's pretty good defensively. That's interesting, because also a good number of the poison types in Gen 1 were, like, pretty defensive. I don't know about Arbok. But certainly Mach had a lot of health and, like, kind of good defense, and Weezing had a lot of defense. And you know, if you think about poison-type moves, well, what do? They all have a chance to poison. Probably not all, but a lot of them. And so maybe the idea is just it's a type that is pretty bad offensively, but you can poison the enemy and then just, you know, survive until they die from poison. And that would make a lot of sense. But, you know, if you're going to be poisoning the enemy to defeat them and not relying on your attacks, well then maybe you should use a move that is exclusively for poisoning the enemy. And obviously you'd want to use the best one of those that you can, right? But like, what's the best poison move to just like poison the enemy? Well, Toxic, of course. Because, you know, it badly poisons them, so it's going to start doing more damage. It's, I think, less initially. But I think they might have buffed regular poison now. Let me check that. Okay, yeah, in Generation 1, regular poison was 1/16 a turn, which was pretty bad. But then they buffed it in Generation 2, and so badly poisoned then wasn't necessarily always the best. It would take 3 turns for them to be equal, but obviously if you're trying to kill an opponent with just poison, you'd want to use Toxic. It would be way better. And also the Toxic Leech Seed combo. Ooh. It's just a funny bug, honestly. You can, I think, defeat any opponent in 4 turns? Might be 3. Because Leech Seed gets powered up by Toxic, somehow. And okay, well, so obviously the poison types are going to be using Toxic. And, you know, in Generation 6, they added it so if it's used by poison types, it never misses. Okay, that's nice. Though, a little bit less nice when you phrase it as a 10% accuracy boost. You know, oh, always hits. Oh, that sounds good. 10% accuracy boost. It's not that much. It's not that much of a benefit for using it on the poison types themselves instead of just another defensive Pokemon, but But obviously being, you know, kind of the most poisony move available in the game, it would be restricted to poison types, right? Well, okay, this is by level up, and you might notice that's kind of very recent for most of them. Okay, here we go, before by TM. Alright. Okay, that's a pretty small list of Pokemon that can learn Toxic by TM. And I don't see any poison types on it. Oh. It's because they don't have a list of Pokemon that can learn Toxic by TM. They have a list of Pokemon that can't. Because every single Pokemon can learn Toxic by TM, except for gimmick Pokemon. Caterpie and Metapod, okay, they evolve into Butterfree and can learn Toxic. Same for Beedrill. Magikarp evolves, Gyarados and learn Toxic. A Ditto obviously only knows Transform, gimmick Pokemon, like I said. Unknown, gimmick Pokemon. Wobbuffet, gimmick Pokemon. Smeargle, gimmick Pokemon that can actually learn Toxic. Wurmple, Silcoon, and Cascan, same situation as above. Why not? Gimmick Pokemon. Beldum, gimmick Pokemon, it only learns to take down. Kricketot, I don't know why, but I mean, it's evolution can. Same for Burmy, Combee, Dynamo, Scout. Actually, Magearna is the only non-gimmick Pokemon that actually can't learn Toxic. Only Magearna. Now, in Generation 8, I think some of the move changes were controversial, like Return doesn't exist anymore and stuff like that, but this is actually what I quite like. They made it so Toxic is actually a bit exclusive. Not every single Pokemon can learn it. This is mostly poison types, right? Like, oh yeah, this is just poison types, and like, Drowsy and Hypno, whatever. Blossom, I mean, it's a, you know, same family as a poison type. So it's okay. That's like mostly poison types of Pokemon that you could kind of see using it. That actually makes sense now. But before that, and especially before Generation 6, why would you use a poison type to stall the enemy and kill them with Toxic, when you could just do that with literally any Pokemon? Any Pokemon could learn Toxic. So just, why bother? Why bother? Why bother with poison types at all? What's the point of any of them? Okay, Canley wants to leave. I'm catless now. Sorry. Hopefully you heard the purring at least. That was, I don't know, a bit of a disappointment having the cats in again. It worked so well last time. Anyway. I mean, it's not like this is bad. It's just, you know, if any Pokemon can do the poison thing, well then what does the poison type itself do? It has a bunch of moves with a chance of inflicting poison, but, well, why would those do poison type damage, which is like the single worst type of damage to be doing in the whole game. So, those aren't the benefit. What's the benefit of poison type? It's just really bad. Anyway, it's just, it's weird. It's weird. Why is it so bad? Like, just as a type, right? Not the individual Pokemon necessarily, but like Nidoking is, like, famously extremely good in Generation 1. But would Nidoking be better if it was, like, normal ground? Maybe. I don't know what type you'd choose exactly, but there's definitely a better one than poison, because what does it get out of the poison type? Like sludge? Does it use sludge? I don't even know if it uses sludge. So there's this idea I've heard from, I think, Imported Cheese, another YouTube channel, that in Generation 1, poison type might have been the intentionally bad type that you give to your enemies so they're easy to beat. And, you know, because Team Rocket, their thing is poison type. And poison type is just not very good. And I think that's an interesting possibility. It might, like, maybe. I don't know if there's any specific proof to that, but it's interesting. Giovanni has a lot of non-poison types, though I think even later on, even in Viridian Gym, he does actually have two of them, Nidoqueen and Nidoking, so... Yeah, I don't know. That's one of the main things I was gonna... ideas I was gonna lead this video toward, like... And again, I think it was Imported Cheese's idea, but maybe they got it from something else too, who knows. Yeah, like maybe. And poison types continue to be common in enemy teams. So even when they added the dark type, I was kind of like, oh, they're bad and evil. Every enemy team leader has a Crobat still, and Zubats. It's not, there isn't actually that many anymore, because, Team Magma's got their own thing. They're like the fire-type team. But you see the poison types in both Team Magma and Aqua, and, like, probably Team Plasma. I always confuse Team Plasma and Team Galactic. And, yeah, they still kind of have a poison theme. There's quite a few poison types here. The Stunky's actually, like, a really... Poison Dark's a pretty hard type to hit. It's only weak to ground, so like I don't know. It's not in that case. Stunky does take advantage of the benefits of poison type, but oh, look at this! Oh, more poison types. It's just kind of one of the most consistent enemy team types throughout the games, and it's really bad. So interesting. So that was. I think that's kind of all I have to say on that front. That's all I can think of, like, for what's going on there. But there's another separate thing about poison type. So currently there's 87 poison type Pokemon total. Okay. 8th most common type. Okay, interesting. I'm thinking, how do I best do this? Maybe I'm just gonna count. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Okay. 11, 12, 13, 14. What's next? Okay, keep going. Okay, here we are. 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, 22, 23, 24, 25, 26, 27, 28, 29, 30, 31, 32, 33. 33. A bit over 1/5 of all Pokemon were poison type in the first generation. That's just a lot. I don't know what else to... I guess there's not that much else to say. So for most of the game's existence, water has been, like, by far the most common type. In the first generation, though, there's only 31 water types, and 33 poison types. And I just counted the water types right now. It's not like the normal types beat it either. There's only 24 normal types, so they aren't even close. Okay, I had to stop for a bit, but I got Cygnus back. Probably hear the person. I'm just holding my cat. Okay. He still kind of doesn't want to be held, but whatever. A bit. There's only like 20 normal types, 24 or something, and 31 water types, 33 poison types. Now, I just want to remind you, there's 87 total poison types. Until very recently, half of all poison types were from Generation 1. Okay, so here's Generation 3, and 5, and 7. So first, I mean, they basically stopped making pure poison types after Generation 1. Did Generation 2 have any? Okay, it had Crobat, and... okay, Spinarak, Ariados, and Quillfish. So that was 3. They were adding effectively like 3 poison types per generation. When in the first one they added 33. I'll just count to see when it caught up. Give me a moment. Okay, so by Generation 5, they'd added 24 new poison types compared to Generation 1. So that 4 generations, 2/3 about the poison types of Gen 1. I'm gonna keep counting. It took until Generation 7, with the addition of Nihiligo, to finally reach 33 poison types, not from Generation 1. Gen 7 had quite a few poison types, actually. Like, look at this. They really, they wanted to remedy the lack of poison types, finally. So until Galar released Sword and Shield, half or more of all poison types were from the first generation. And which is just really weird, I think. They just stopped making poison types. Like, poison types got a rarity of, like... I don't know when this chart was made, is the only issue. Oh, I found a chart here. This is perfect. Thank you, Lié Lindizzle. So this is perfect. You can see exactly what I'm talking about here. Poison. Just... Did they... Wait, they said there's over 35 there. I'm wondering if they counted different forms. Okay, I have 184. Okay. There were not 184 Kanto Pokemon. Okay. This was an ideal graph. That's counting like Mega Venusaur, Mega Beedrill, and probably like maybe even Galarian, Weaving, and stuff like that. So, okay. These are really funny to me. Okay. Well, I'm using it anyway because it's really good, close to what I like to perfect. No, poison type has the kind of frequency as like Ghost or Dragon after Gen 1. Look at this, the least common in Hoenn. Is it less common than Ghost or Dragon or Ice? And then Sinnoh, like, equal to Ghost and Dragon. Like, it's just... You know, in this chart, it's very in the middle. It's the 8th most common type. But were it not for Kanto, it would be at the bottom. It's got Dragon type rarity. if it wasn't for Kanto. This is also really out of date. But anyway. I don't know, maybe they realized poison was really bad, or maybe they realized they used too many poison types in Generation 1, they just added so many. They're like, oh, okay. We gotta stop. We did way too many in Gen 1. What were we thinking with that? And, again, I just counted them out last time, but there's a ton of pure poison types, right? Look at this. 1, 2... 3 full lines of poison types, but you got, you know, the Nidorans too, that's 2 extra. So it's like 5 sets of 2 pure poison types. And you have Zubat, but then most of them are secondary poison type, because almost every grass type is poison type. The only grass types that aren't poison type are Tangela and Parasect. Which, Parasect, shout out to Parasect for being... for having 3 double weaknesses. You really set the record. It's never been beaten. No Pokemon has ever beaten 3 double weaknesses. Congratulations, Parasect. Because that was when Bug was weak to poison, so it had that as a double weakness. So yeah, just every grass type, you got all these bugs too. Quite a few of those, and then Tentacool, and all the ghost types are also poison. It's just... So yeah, they just went crazy with the poison types, and then they're like, you know, I think we're done with poison types. I think we'll make like a poisonous bug or something every few generations. We're like, yeah, I think we're kind of out of them. Yeah. I think that was all I had to say. It's just weird. You have anything else to say, Kat? He doesn't want to be held. He wants to go out he'll go out the window. I'll let him after this. Anything else? For the fans? Eat a bug for the fans? Anything for the haters? He doesn't know the German reference. He doesn't know. Cygnus does not watch German, and so I sad to say. Okay, Cygnus is at the cat tower. We're fine. So I don't think there's anything else about I just think there's just some weird stuff going on with poison type, particularly the first generation, with how many they added, and all the bug thing, and just how worthless it is offensively, and that toxic will avail to everybody. It's just a quick summary of the video in like 10 seconds for some reason at the end. Yeah, okay. Okay, I'm just reviewing if there's anything else I wanted to say. I have a friend that said they think Liquid Ooze should be a default ability of Poison type, and that's the one that makes some damage Pokemon that try to drain health. But I don't know. I disagree. I disagree entirely. But whatever, you know, throw that one in. Okay, I'm recording this a lot later. There's a few things that I forgot that I've noticed. So first, in Kanto there's a Poison type gym leader. But then there's also a Poison type Elite Four member that calls herself a Ghost type trainer. And they didn't need to give her Golbat and Arbok to be completely Poison type. They could have chosen something else, but they did choose Golbat and Arbok, so she is an entirely Poison type team. And then in the remakes, they give her actual Poison type attacks on all these Pokemon, so okay, even more so. And then the crazy thing is, I'm just learning this now, they made it worse in Let's Go Pikachu and Eevee. They replaced her Haunter with a Weezing. So she's more poison that aren't Ghost than Ghost in this one. And that's just kind of crazy. What did they do in the rematch? They give her an Alolan Marowak. Okay, because that's a... Marowak is from Kanto, so that was a Ghost type they could throw in. Okay, sure. I guess that's a result of how many Poison types there are in Kanto. They just one gym leader wasn't enough. They needed an Elite Four member to also be Poison type. Next is that Poison was the last type to get a legendary. For some of them it took a while, like Fighting actually took until Gen 5, same for Bug. But by Gen 5 all types except Poison had a legendary. And then Gen 6 Fairy was added and got a legendary. And so it took until Gen 7 if you count Ultra Beasts, which I do. So Nihilego. I think the other Ultra Beast isn't even on any, like, you know, I'm checking different lists. This one doesn't have Ultra Beasts at all. Right, and this one I think is missing the Naga Needle, maybe. So if you don't want to count Ultra Beasts, then it took until Galar with Eternatus, Generation 8, for there to be a Poison type legendary. Every other one was there by Gen 5. And that's just kind of, that's crazy, I think. Then the generation after that, maybe they noticed they didn't have any Poison type ones, so they threw these three all in as Poison types. I don't know. But I guess it's part of, like, you know, they didn't add many Poison types after Gen 1, or they thought Poison types were bad. Because Gen 7 was also when they started adding, like, a bunch of Poison types again. There's, like, 7 and, you know, Lola, I don't know. It was quite a few. And so, like, oh, they finally remembered Poison type. I think that it's probably as a result of adding Fairy. They're like, oh wait, we need Poison types because we have Fairy, so okay, we'll start adding those the generation after Fairy. Okay. Yeah, that's all. Just those two things I remembered about odd things about Poison type. It's a bit of an odd type, for sure.